General Hospital spoilers for exciting plot twists over the next 2 weeks. From July 7th to 18th tease that the tension between Sidwell and Sunny is no longer simmering beneath the surface, it is now a full-blown, escalating conflict threatening to destabilize the delicate balance of power in Port Charles. What once might have been dismissed as a battle of wills has transformed into a psychological war, fueled by deeply personal vendettas, moral ambiguity, and a dangerous desire for total dominance. Sidwell, coldly calculating and eerily composed, has been quietly embedding himself deeper into the lives of Sunny's allies, probing for weakness, manipulating emotions, and planting the seeds of doubt with surgical precision. He doesn't merely want to win, he wants to dismantle Sunny's legacy piece by piece, until there's nothing left of the empire that once ruled Port Charles from the shadows. Sunny, long feared and respected for his control, is beginning to show cracks beneath the pressure. The death of Natalia, and the swirling rumors about his possible involvement, have already frayed the edges of his public image. Now, as Sidwell manipulates perceptions and allies alike, Sunny's once commanding presence is starting to erode, not in strength, but in influence. Those closest to him feel the shift, even if they cannot speak it aloud. He is still a powerful figure, but his decisions are growing more reactionary, his patience thinner, and his circle of trust shrinking by the day. Perhaps the most alarming sign of this unraveling is Marco. Once loyal to Sunny, Marco has begun exhibiting subtle but undeniable signs of transformation. His behavior has grown unpredictable, moments of detachment, decisions that defy Sunny's orders, and quiet conversations behind closed doors that no one can fully explain. Marco, who once acted with clarity and conviction, now appears haunted, driven not by strategy, but by something darker. Some suspect that Sidwell has gotten to him, that Marco is being manipulated or blackmailed into shifting allegiances. Others whisper that Marco has developed an obsession with the truth behind Natalia's death, and that this obsession is consuming his judgment. Whatever the cause, Marco's evolution is setting off alarm bells. His decisions are becoming liabilities. His actions no longer align seamlessly with Sunny's directives. In the past, Sunny would have cut off a potential threat with ruthless finality, but with Marco, there is hesitation. Is it loyalty? Sentimentality? Or simply denial? Whatever it is, it's creating dangerous blind spots. At the heart of all this is a new obsession that no one dares name, the possibility that Sidwell's influence is growing so vast, so embedded, that even Sunny can no longer trace the full extent of it. Sidwell is not attacking directly. He is destabilizing from within, poisoning trust, breeding paranoia, and turning Sunny's own people against him with the slow patience of a master tactician. And Marco, whether willingly or not, may be the key to Sidwell's endgame. If Marco turns fully, if he becomes a vessel for Sidwell's agenda, it will not only fracture Sunny's inner circle but ignite a chain of betrayal that could burn down what remains of his power. This is no longer just a war between two men. It's a psychological battlefield where obsession is the weapon, and the line between friend and enemy is vanishing. Each new development reveals that something has fundamentally shifted, not just in strategy, but in spirit. There is a darkness spreading through Port Charles, and as Sidwell tightens his grip, Sunny's world continues to shrink. The war is no longer about crime, territory, or revenge. It is about control of perception, of loyalty, of legacy, and those who cannot adapt to the madness may be swallowed whole by it. Michael is quietly orchestrating a plan that threatens to dismantle the carefully arranged wedding between Willow and Drew, a plan built not with brute force, but with psychological pressure, veiled threats, and strategic manipulation. As the wedding date looms, Michael has shifted from grieving ex-husband to a man with a mission, one that centers around reclaiming power, rewriting emotional history, and asserting control over the woman who once chose to walk away. But now, Michael holds something far more potent than affection, leverage. In a move cloaked as concern, he's presented Willow with a new agreement, one that offers her certain privileges and access to the children she adores, but with strings tightly attached. These rights are conditional. subtly implying that her future relationship with Wiley and Amelia is contingent upon her willingness to cooperate with him on terms he sets. It's not blackmail in the traditional sense, it's psychological warfare, dressed in civility, painted with the colors of fatherhood and compromise. Willow, already under pressure from the weight of a fast-moving engagement with Drew, finds herself increasingly cornered. The man she trusted to build a future with is now seeing her caught in a power struggle she never anticipated, one where every decision she makes feels like betrayal, of Drew, of her children, and of herself. The more Michael pushes, the more Drew tightens his grip, becoming territorial, suspicious, and controlling. What began as a hopeful path to stability is now riddled with manipulation, escalating tension, and unspoken fear. Drew senses the emotional shift in Willow, but rather than step back and reassess, he doubles down, blaming Michael, drawing lines in the sand, and, in the process, pushing Willow closer to emotional isolation. This toxic triangle is rapidly becoming untenable. Willow, caught between two powerful men, one offering a future built on loyalty, the other offering emotional ransom disguised as parental concern, feels herself unraveling. The wedding, once envisioned as a new chapter, is now a stage for competing agendas. Michael's obsession with reasserting his influence over Willow is no longer subtle. It's visible in every calculated gesture, every strategically timed visit, every offer that seems like kindness but bleeds with coercion. He doesn't need to scream to be heard, his calm demeanor masks a storm of control. And Willow is beginning to feel the suffocating air around her close in. Meanwhile, Drew, who once saw Michael as an ally, now sees him as a saboteur. Their alliance has dissolved, replaced with silent hostility and a growing paranoia. Drew's frustration with Willow's reluctance to shut Michael out is feeding into his possessiveness, creating a rift so wide that even love cannot bridge it. The more he demands loyalty, the more Willow feels imprisoned. She is no longer choosing between two men, she is choosing between autonomy and submission. At the center of it all is an obsession that neither man will admit. A desire to control the narrative of Willow's life. Michael's campaign is not just about fatherhood or fairness, it's about reclaiming something he believes was taken from him. Drew's urgency to finalize the marriage is not just about love, it's about securing something before it slips away. Both men are acting out of fear disguised as purpose. And Willow is paying the emotional price. As the wedding approaches, the air is heavy with anticipation and dread. The ceremony itself, meant to symbolize love and new beginnings, is now a ticking time bomb, one secret, one whisper, one moment away from implosion. Michael is prepared to detonate it if he must. He believes he's justified, believes he's acting out of protection. But what he's truly unleashing is chaos cloaked in reason. The transformation is clear, what was once a romance has become a battlefield. And Willow, once hopeful and grounded, is now caught in a storm of obsession, pressure, and looming betrayal. The wedding may still take place, but even if vows are exchanged, the foundation is cracked. What awaits may not be a marriage, but a reckoning. Rocco's sudden disappearance alongside Lulu and Dante has sent shockwaves rippling through Port Charles, marking not just a family crisis but the eruption of long-buried truths that have detonated into a chain of emotional and psychological consequences. It was no ordinary vanishing act, this was a calculated escape born from the combustible collision of secrets, revelations, and mounting distrust. For Rocco, the world he thought he knew had just been violently unmade. The recent confirmation of disturbing truths, ones tied to his birth, to Lulu's long-held silence, and to the carefully constructed narrative surrounding his identity, has shattered the fragile illusion of stability he clung to. What began as suspicion grew into obsession, and now, in the wake of these revelations, Rocco has made a drastic move to confront and contain the source of the deception, his own mother. Lulu, still recovering from the emotional whiplash of returning to a life filled with unanswered questions and fractured relationships, now finds herself under siege not from enemies, but from her own son. Rocco, once tender and impressionable, has evolved into a young man filled with questions that demand answers, answers Lulu can no longer avoid. Her years in a coma became a barrier between them. And now that she's awake, Rocco refuses to let that time erase accountability. The more Lulu tries to rationalize or delay the truth, the more Rocco presses with cold resolve. To him, this isn't about forgiveness, it's about control, justice, and a need to reclaim the autonomy that was quietly stolen from him through years of manipulation and half-truths. Dante, caught between his roles as father, protector, and peacemaker, is left spiraling as he tries to contain the fallout. He had hoped the reunion with Lulu would bring healing, but instead, it has ignited a storm. Rocco's actions, disappearing without warning, leaving behind only fragments of a plan, have reignited Dante's worst fears. And yet, he understands. Deep down, he knows that Rocco is not running away, but running toward something. Toward clarity. Toward confrontation. Toward the dismantling of a legacy of secrets that has plagued his family for too long. Their disappearance is more than a physical absence, it is a symbolic rebellion against the expectations and lies that have defined their lives. Rocco is pushing Lulu into a reckoning she never anticipated, demanding she face the consequences of choices made in silence. For years, the truth about his biological origins, the circumstances of his birth, and the motives behind decisions made for his own good have been smothered under the guise of protection. Now, those motives are being torn apart, analyzed, and weaponized by a son who no longer trusts the people who once claimed to love him. This latest twist is more than a family drama, it is a seismic shift in power. Rocco is no longer a passive figure in the lives of Lulu and Dante. He is now a catalyst. A force demanding answers. A mirror reflecting the damage done by secrecy. And the longer they remain in hiding, the more the town begins to speculate, the more Jason and others begin to mobilize. And the more it becomes clear that the aftershocks of this decision will not be easily resolved. Rocco's obsession with unmasking the truth, particularly regarding Lulu's role in concealing his true identity, is driving him to extremes. It's no longer just about finding out who he is, it's about exposing who she has become. Every moment they spend in isolation is another moment Rocco uses to pressure Lulu, to make her relive the lies, to strip away the maternal protection she once hid behind. Lulu, once fearless and composed, now finds herself unraveling under the relentless scrutiny of her own child. Her silence is no longer an option. And every withheld answer is interpreted by Rocco as another betrayal. In the end, what's unfolding isn't just a runaway story or a family retreat. It's a confrontation decades in the making. A son forcing a mother to confront her darkest decisions. A father trying to hold together a family that may never look the same again. And a town watching from a distance, wondering what will be left standing when the truth finally comes to light. The long-awaited resurgence of information surrounding Britt has sent a seismic wave through the already fragile structure of Port Charles. And at the center of this unfolding storm stands Jason, suddenly thrust into a maelstrom of emotional and tactical upheaval. What began as a faint rumor, a trace of encrypted data recovered from a hidden WSB archive, has grown into a full-fledged revelation. Britt, long believed to be gone forever, has left behind a breadcrumb trail of secrets that are now surfacing in increasingly dangerous ways. It is not merely her presence or absence that matters now, but the consequences of what she knew, and what she may have protected in silence until the end. Jason, for all his stoicism and calculated control, finds himself destabilized by the implications. The woman he lost was not just a tragic casualty of his past, but perhaps the only person who held the key to stopping the new wave of psychological and technological warfare threatening everything he still cares about. The files bearing Britt's name are not just emotional triggers, they are operational hazards. Encoded medical data, obscure patient references, anomalous biometric patterns, and unreleased treatment protocols suggest a network of unauthorized experimentation that could tie Britt to the very origins of the clone research Jason has been chasing alongside Jocelyn. The implications are terrifying. These aren't coincidences, they're buried blueprints. And if Britt was involved, it raises disturbing questions. Did she help create something that spiraled out of control? Was she trying to stop it? Or worse, did she sacrifice herself to hide it? For Jason, every step deeper into her legacy feels like stepping into a minefield of betrayal, unresolved love, and scientific horrors that defy comprehension. But the personal becomes political fast. Jason realizes that Britt's name is still being watched, monitored by unseen factions within the WSB and shadow operatives connected to Sidwell and Dalton's rival programs. Her medical credentials are now tied to controversial case studies involving DNA alteration, psychological implantation, and maternal subject tracking, a discovery that sends Jason reeling when he sees Daisy's birth registry cross-referenced with an encrypted file under Britt's research wing. Could it be that Britt knew about Daisy? Worse, could she have played a part in orchestrating the events that brought Daisy into this world under such dangerous pretenses? The questions spiral. And so does Jason's obsession. Every ally now becomes a potential enemy. Every file a trap. He begins to isolate himself, pushing away Sunny, doubting Carly, and refusing to trust even Michael, whose emotional entanglements with Willow have grown more unstable by the day. Meanwhile, the threat looms ever larger. Sidwell's reach is expanding. And it's clear he wants Britt's research for himself. He's not alone. A hidden investor linked to Montague resurfaces. And Jason begins to suspect that the WSB's entire interest in Daisy and Sasha may stem from a long-running attempt to retrieve and weaponize Britt's genetic research. But what truly breaks Jason is the letter. Hidden within the depths of the data cache is a personal message, dated days before Britt's death, encrypted and meant only for him. In it, Britt confesses her regrets, not just about their love, but about what she did to protect him in Port Charles. She feared Jason would never forgive her if he knew how deep her involvement went. She tells him to protect Daisy, and to trust no one who speaks in Dalton's name. Her words are equal parts confession and warning, and they shatter the last remnants of Jason's emotional detachment. Suddenly, the stakes are no longer abstract, they are deeply personal. Daisy's safety. Sasha's sanity. The town's very survival. They all hinge on decisions Jason must now make while walking the tightrope between vengeance and redemption. Meanwhile, others begin to connect the dots. Jocelyn, increasingly obsessed with Dalton's labs and the strange behavioral anomalies in those close to her, begins comparing her findings with what Jason has now decrypted. Their investigations converge on a lab long thought destroyed, Project Paragon, where Britt was last rumored to have been seen alive. The lab, located beneath a WSB outpost in Scandinavia, may still be operational under Sidwell's private funding. The idea that Britt is alive suddenly doesn't seem so far-fetched. But even if she's dead, her work lives on, and in the wrong hands. It could unravel reality as they know it. As Jason prepares for an extraction mission to the Scandinavian site, he is burdened not just with the ghosts of his past, but the heavy truth that he may have to destroy the very thing Britt spent her life trying to protect. Because this is no longer about memory or mourning, this is about ending a chain of scientific corruption and psychological experimentation that could rewrite the future of humanity. Britt's secrets, once buried in grief, have become the key to both salvation and destruction. Jason must now confront a reality he never imagined, that love, betrayal, science, and war have all converged on him at once. And if he fails, if he hesitates even for a second, the cost won't just be Daisy or Sasha or Sunny. The cost will be the soul of Port Charles itself. Anna and Jason now find themselves at the very center of a sprawling and escalating war, one that neither of them fully anticipated, and one that has begun to consume everything around them. Their confrontation with Dalton was not merely a matter of shutting down a rogue scientist's deranged operation, but a collision with a far more sinister and deeply rooted force that has infiltrated the very core of Port Charles. What they've uncovered about Dalton's partnership with Sidwell is just the beginning of a much larger, methodical campaign of manipulation, identity re-engineering, and psychological warfare, one that has already begun to fracture alliances and destabilize entire families. The collision course that Anna and Jason are now on is no longer just professional or strategic. It is intensely personal, shaped by grief, betrayal, and an obsessive need to prevent further destruction before it spirals out of control. Dalton, once a figure on the periphery of Port Charles, has revealed himself as a master manipulator cloaked in the legitimacy of scientific progress. With Brit's stolen research and his own obsession with neurological programming, Dalton has created a prototype system capable of reprogramming human behavior, Project Apex. This isn't just about cloning or bioenhancement anymore. This is about turning people into programmable assets, stripping them of identity, and converting them into controlled weapons in a larger campaign to destabilize traditional power structures. The threat is no longer theoretical. Jason and Anna have confirmed that test subjects, both willing and unknowingly coerced, have already been seated throughout the city. Families, law enforcement agencies, even members of the WSB may be compromised, with no clear way to distinguish who is still operating under their own free will. Jason, still haunted by Brit's death and now facing disturbing possibilities about Daisy's paternity, has become more volatile and determined. The discovery that Dalton used fragments of Brit's genetic data and behavioral profiles in his experiments has pushed Jason into a dangerous space emotionally. He suspects that Daisy may have been targeted from birth, not simply watched or followed, but actively selected as part of a generational design. While Anna tries to remain methodical, Jason's desperation to protect Daisy, combined with his guilt over not uncovering this sooner, has turned him into an unrelenting force. Together, the two of them track Dalton to a hidden underground facility once operated by the WSB, now corrupted and repurposed by Sidwell's private intelligence network. The confrontation inside is explosive. Dalton, flanked by heavily armed loyalists and surrounded by his warped vision of scientific utopia, offers Jason and Anna a chilling ultimatum: leave now and let progress continue, or die trying to stop evolution. He taunts Jason with encrypted files containing sensitive data on Daisy, Brit, and even Sunny, hints that the Corinthos Empire itself may have been infiltrated by Apex agents or influenced by subliminal programming. He mocks Anna's sense of justice, calling it obsolete in a world where control is more effective than choice. The battle that follows is brutal and chaotic, Jason dismantling Dalton's security detail with ruthless efficiency while Anna disables the neural transfer systems. Together, they force Dalton into custody, but not before he initiates a data transfer to Sidwell, who escapes with the master key to every programmed mind under their control. As Port Charles reels from the fallout, it becomes increasingly clear that the real war is just beginning. Anna and Jason now understand that Dalton was only a piece of a much larger mechanism. Sidwell is the architect, the one who saw the potential for weaponizing identity itself. The Apex subjects remain at large, dormant and unaware, capable of being activated at any time. The city is a ticking time bomb, and no one knows which resident might suddenly become a weapon. Anna's trust in her own intelligence network is shattered. Jason can no longer view his inner circle, especially those closest to Daisy, without suspicion. Paranoia begins to spread like wildfire through the ranks of the WSB and local law enforcement, and even civilians begin to question their own memories, unsure of what was real and what may have been subtly implanted or altered. Worse still, there are whispers that Sidwell is seeking asylum in an unnamed nation with ties to experimental neurological warfare, somewhere he can operate freely without moral or legal constraints. The fear is that he'll use the Apex data to establish a new global network of loyalty, an invisible army bound not by ideology but by neurological obedience. If that happens, Port Charles will have only been the test case. The world could follow. Anna, deeply affected by her inability to prevent this, begins to push the limits of her authority within the WSB, risking her position to chase Sidwell across international borders. Jason, driven not only by his need to protect Daisy but also by his loyalty to Brit's memory, becomes more dangerous, more willing to cross lines he once respected. Together, they begin orchestrating an off-the-books operation, building a network of allies who are untraceable and unprogrammed, people who operate outside of any system Sidwell can manipulate. But the longer this war drags on, the more unstable everything becomes. Friendships fracture. Trust collapses. Emotional breakdowns begin to surface among those who were unknowingly experimented on. Sunny, already burdened by personal loss, becomes increasingly suspicious of his own team. Sasha, already fragile, fears she may have been used as a pawn. Jocelyn, investigating Dalton's early research alongside Jason, begins questioning her own medical history. The psychological toll is mounting. And in the center of it all, Anna and Jason stand like twin sentinels, guarding a city that no longer knows what it believes, a population that no longer knows who they are. This is no longer just a fight against evil, it is a fight for identity itself. For memory. For the right to be human. And as Sidwell grows stronger in the shadows, and Apex prepares to launch a second wave, Jason and Anna prepare for their most dangerous mission yet, to find the source, destroy the programming core, and reclaim the minds and lives that Dalton and Sidwell sought to erase. Because in this war, the greatest danger isn't death, it's forgetting who you are before someone else decides it for you.